Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, what is the difference between avoidant personality disorder and paranoid personality disorder? It's not unusual that these two personality disorders become confused with one another, even though the symptom criteria are quite different. I think what makes these two disorders easily confused is that the functional consequences of both disorders are a bit similar. So a quick overview on avoidant and paranoid personality disorders. Avoidant personality disorder is a cluster C personality disorder. That's the anxious, fearful cluster. It's in the same cluster as dependent personality disorder and obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. Paranoid personality disorder is in cluster A. That's the odd, eccentric cluster. And it's in that same cluster with schizotypal and schizoid personality disorders. So if we look at the symptom criteria for avoidant personality disorder, we see a number of potential symptoms, including avoiding occupations with a lot of social contact because of fear of rejection, only entering into relationships when there's a certainty of being liked, having difficulty with intimate relationships, having a preoccupation with being criticized or being rejected in social situations, being inhibited in new relationships, feeling inept and inferior, and avoiding risks because of fear of embarrassment. So we see a theme here with the symptom criteria in avoidant personality disorder that someone is really worried about being rejected, criticized, and embarrassed. Now taking a look at the symptom criteria for paranoid personality disorder. Here we see a number of potential symptoms, including an individual suspects that others are trying to harm, deceive, or exploit them. We also see a preoccupation with doubts about loyalty from friends or associates, a reluctance to confide in other individuals because there's this fear that that information will be used against the individual. We also see a tendency in paranoid personality disorder for an individual to take benign remarks and read into them and see things that are threatening or demeaning. Also, an individual with paranoid personality disorder tends to hold grudges, tends to perceive attacks on character or reputation even when there's no evidence to support that, and reacts in an angry way or counterattacks. The last symptom criteria of paranoid personality disorder is a suspiciousness of infidelity. They're oftentimes worried that a spouse or romantic partner is cheating. So we see the theme with paranoid personality disorder is that somebody is suspicious of people around them in a number of different ways, and they tend to act defensively. They tend to feel threatened often. So as we can see from the symptom criteria of these two personality disorders, there's not a lot of overlap. We can appreciate that there's a reluctance to confide in paranoid personality disorder, and this would be similar to what we would see with avoidant personality disorder in the having difficulty starting new relationships and having difficulty with intimate relationships. But the reason for being reluctant to confide is quite a bit different between these two personality disorders. For somebody with paranoid personality disorder, it's this concern that the information will be used against them or they'll be hurt in some way by confiding information in somebody else. With avoidant personality disorder, it's a fear of criticism and rejection. Now, when we look at the functional consequences of paranoid personality disorder and the associated features of this disorder, we'll see some overlap with the functional consequences and associated features of avoidant personality disorder. But there's a lot of area here where there's no overlap as well. So looking at paranoid personality disorder, individuals with this disorder tend to be perceived as being cold, having few friends, lacking empathy, being combative and litigious, being overly critical of other individuals, having grandiose fantasies, kind of like the ones we might see in narcissistic personality disorder, being self-sufficient, having interpersonal aloofness, a need for control, and being socially isolated. So when we look for the overlap there with avoidant personality disorder, being perceived as cold could be one of them, lacking empathy could also be an area of overlap, being socially isolated certainly would be, and interpersonal aloofness would be. One that really stands out between these two is few friends, or few close relationships. Again, with paranoid personality disorder, that's because people are driven away by that hostile behavior. And with avoidant personality disorder, That's because the individual with avoidant personality disorder is fearful of forming those relationships. There's fear of criticism and rejection. So with these two personality disorders, we don't see much overlap with the symptom criteria, but we do see some overlap with the functional consequences and associated features. It's clear, though, that there are some significant differences between the personality disorders as well. And in general, with a thorough history and a quality assessment, these two disorders should be able to be differentiated from one another. Another question I get sometimes regarding avoidant personality disorder and paranoid personality disorder is, can they be comorbid? Can they both be diagnosed at the same time? And the answer is yes. We wouldn't normally think that two personality disorders like this would be comorbid because the themes of each one are quite a bit different: suspiciousness and a fear of rejection and criticism. But actually, it's not unusual to see avoidant personality disorder and paranoid personality disorder together. Paranoid personality disorder is comorbid with schizotypal, schizoid, narcissistic, and borderline personality disorders, as well as avoidant personality disorder. So on occasion, we do see these disorders co-occurring. We see them comorbid. I hope you found this description of paranoid and avoidant personality disorders to be interesting. Thanks for watching.